Yeah, so happy to have Brian, otherwise known as Simmel, on the podcast. I appreciate you taking time out of your day. I know you're busy, got a lot going on, and yeah, just appreciate the time. How have things been?
Things are good, man. Thank you for having me. This is yeah, man. Just happy to be doing music as a job, as we were just kind of talking about before. So,
Yeah.
yeah, man. Things are good.
So a question I kind of ask everybody to start, and I always just find it interesting, is what kind of music was playing in your house as a kid, and then like what did your parents listen to, and then as you kind of grew up and got like your own ear, so to speak, what did you really gravitate towards?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to somebody yesterday about the first CD, the first boombox and the first CD sort of
Uh,
aligns. Like my parents bought me the boombox, and I bought the first CD, and it was Tom Petty, Into the Great Wide Open. And then I exploded kind of from there, but I was set up to enjoy that type of music because my parents listened to a lot of what was then classic rock, and a lot of Beatles, a lot of Beach Boys, a lot of
uh,
Simon and Garfunkel. So it was always like heavily melodic. There was some classical. I was raised as like training classically on the piano, but that wasn't like did not dominate the listening at home. So it was
yeah,
mostly like, yeah, I guess for lack of like pop singer songwriter was really what I came up with, and then evolved
yeah.
into like grunge and stuff as I grew older.
Yeah, it's funny. My parents got me my first like portable CD player. I have no idea why. The first CD I got was a Weird Al CD, and it was like it was for Christmas one year, and they got me a Weird Al CD. So that was my and
Was it the
Tub
Coolio one?
Thumping by
Oh
it
yeah, yeah.
was the Coolio one, yeah, and they got me Tub Thumping by Chumbawamba. So those were my first two CDs, not by choice, but by
Highbrow, highbrow.
um yeah, my taste grew from there, luckily. But yeah, so those were my first experiences into the CD world.
Yeah.
But kind of, obviously, you born and raised in Seattle. Did the grunge music kind of, evolve into your taste? I know it was maybe like really early in your childhood that it was
Yeah.
really prevalent, but
Yeah, I was fifth grade when Kurt Cobain died, so that like I was too young to be going to any shows yet, or just like right on the
uh,
cusp. Um, and I remember being sad about it because everybody was like a fan, and it was one of those things that's like I'm sure this happened outside of Seattle too, but especially in Seattle, where it was like a bit of a peer pressure moment to be like, oh, did you get the latest like Pearl Jam record, or like, you know, kids my age only knew the mainstream grunge bands really. Um, like I still am like a huge Soundgarden fan. And I know they're not necessarily grunge at all, but again, this kind of ties to like Nirvana was melodic, Pearl Jam certainly was melodic, Soundgarden especially was melodic. Um, so I was definitely like a tertiary byproduct of being around grunge in my own
yeah,
backyard, but I wasn't going to shows yet, right? So it was like I will say though that the existence of the alternative station here, which is called the End, still here, um, that played a huge role in the music that I was exposed to, and I think grunge being here really empowered that station to like play and break bands at that time.
yeah. So was the melodic music you talk about, did that influence the kind of style of music that you eventually got into making, or were there other artists that kind of also pushed you in a certain direction?
Yeah, I mean, Smashing Pumpkins was huge for me. And that's like, and then I eventually loved, like Stone Temple Pilots was big. And these are all like, I mean, it's easy to sort of look back on it now and kind of be critical or pick it apart for its quirks and all that, or for like its heavy, or the heavy influence that like drug addiction had on all these
Right,
artists.
right,
Um, but it wasn't, like it certainly had an impact on me harmonically and melodically because I would like, with portable CD players or whatever, like I'd be doing homework and like harmonizing to all these songs
mm,
without like vocally, like so because I didn't sing much at all growing up. Um,
yeah,
so that definitely gave me an understanding of harmony, but also like just song structure and a general sense of angst, I guess, in the writing process. I
right,
absorbed that for sure.
right. Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be impossible not to absorb some of the angst that a grunge music holds deep inside of it. So,
Yes.
it has to happen.
Yeah.
Now I'm not how many people listening would know this, but you were in an indie band prior to doing your solo work called Barcelona,
Yeah.
and I was kind of listening through it a little bit today, and a lot of the music, or it feels like to me, a lot of the music sounds fairly similar to kind of what you're doing in your solo project. Was that when you decided to do the solo thing? Was that kind of the goal, was to keep that same style, or it just kind of happened that way?
It's kind of happened that way. I mean, when
Yeah.
I think, most people have like not signature sound in the sense of like a brand or whatever, but like the, your brain and heart, are going to be the same that you were born with a little bit. And as you like live life and have sadder and harder things to write about, you still have that sort of like, accent, I guess, as a musician and as a singer, and a writer. So yeah, when I listen back to it, I still hear the self that I like know today, but at the same time, I mean, it's just like a less refined version, right? Like, um,
Sure.
lived less life up to that point, and but yeah, like when like "Where's My Love" was the first song I wrote for SYML, and that I sent to the band like years before we disbanded, just being like, "Oh, I just wrote this today," but our sound had like had changed so much over the years as it does, and we were onto some like not giving a whatever, and like we were like 80s, I don't know, I like fell in love with Robin for a minute, so like our stuff sounded like Robin by that point,
Yeah.
and like the angsty rainy piano stuff had kind of moved on from that sound. But yeah, man, I mean, like it's the same brain making it.
Yeah. So kind of, down that road, you have a new album out,
Yeah.
almost 2 months now, I guess, called Nobody Lives Here. Can you walk us through the inspiration of it, and the process behind putting it together, and how
Yeah.
you kind of feel about it now?
Yeah, I mean, it's wild to release something, and then we've played a few shows already since it's been out, and that's always like a bit of a cool evolution to watch happen with songs, and then with your attachment to songs, like just like children, you sort of like teach them and like mold them as much as you can, and then you put them out in the world, and they're like, all right, I guess we'll see if people like you.
Right.
But yeah, making, I mean, basically made a lot of it here in my home studio, and I made it with my like longtime best friend collaborator, also named Brian Eichelberger. We've been making music. He was in Barcelona with me, and
Nice.
back in the day, so like I learned how to record and produce and a lot of our writing from him, and so yeah, it felt very like homey and cozy in that sense, and that fit. I mean, it was pretty intentional because a lot of the songs feel that way. So um, I think for every record, it's important to be like, I also in the studio can make really big bombastic, like crazy sounding stuff too. But like I think when you put yourself in a, if it needs to be cozy, like get cozy, I guess is what I
Yeah.
mean for that record. So yeah, I'm super proud of the writing, super proud of the production, and it's good that it's out, man. But yeah, I think most musicians have this thing where you lived with these songs and you lived with the record for like over a year sometimes before it's even out, and then it's out and you're like, well, I'm like two worlds beyond this now in terms of what I'm
Right.
what I'm being inspired by and stuff. So, but it is fun to play them live.
Yeah. Does working with somebody like Brian, somebody you've worked with for so long, does that um allow you to kind of like really stay true to the sound you wanna have?
Yeah, I mean, in the sense that like we trust each other really implicitly, and he knows me so well that if it's like any relationship, like you start speaking the same language enough, and you can anticipate and predict, better than most people. Um, but yeah, if I was ever like off the rails in the sense of like doing something that doesn't serve the song's best interest, like yeah, he'd be the first one to say, yeah, it's a miss. But at the same time, just like in a relationship, when you like compromise because you like fight for something you believe in, the other person like out of love is like, okay, like I trust that you know yourself in this way,
Right.
and so yeah, it is like hilariously like a marriage.
So I think, having listened through it, my favorite song off of it is a song called "Careful,"
Mm.
and I don't know why. For me, it felt like it really spoke to a lot of my inner monologue that I go through. Can you talk about that one in particular? Maybe the writing behind it, and not the meaning, perhaps, because everybody kind of puts their own meaning. But yeah, just
Yeah,
kind of the
right.
spin on it.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good point. I think everybody will find a bit of different meaning in any song, but that one especially is like very much like a inner dialogue of comparison and just how awful it can be as we get older and you know, whatever your chosen profession or chosen uh thing that takes up all your time because you love it and care about it. Um, I think it's that sort of like, are you doing it because you need to, or because you're forced, or because you feel like you need to, or you know, how are you moving? Like, and who's steering that ship? Uh, and then yeah, that production was really fun just because it's like really bare bones until
Mhm.
sort of that last little bit. And it's so funny,
Yeah.
like Barcelona version of me would have like hung out in that big massive section like for 2 minutes because it just
Yeah.
felt like so sweet and so like over the top and
Right.
like
Yeah.
belting and hitting things super hard. But like again, to serve the song best, it's like especially with a song called Careful, it's like you have to like keep it compartmentalized because you know we're just all trying to hold it together. So don't be
Yeah.
gratuitous. Don't lean in too much. Like be careful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, even with like mentioning like I do feel like you're right. An indie band would definitely hold in that space a lot longer. Whereas like someone, in your space is very much in and out of those big moments purposefully, to kind of serve like the feeling of the song. So
Yeah,
um how since making music with Barcelona to now, has your approach to making or your creative process changed over the years? Obviously now, you have a lot more responsibilities outside of music, but
yeah,
what else has changed about it?
yeah, man. I think the responsibility actually does help the creative. Like I think that you know as our family grew, so did my career. So like I think you subconsciously make decisions both from a business standpoint but also from a creative standpoint. So like I the easiest way to describe it is like it became more of like a 9 to 5. Um and instead of just like going out and drinking and then like sleeping in till 2 and then like seeing what comes to you in the studio as you're hungover, like that got old for me. Um And man, I don't know. I think the longer you do something, just the better you'll get in the sense of like learning how you like to operate. So, um, the biggest challenge for me, and I know a lot of musicians, was like starting something and finishing something. Like I I now know that I like to bounce to like 10 different things at the same time because it like helps me have perspective on the other things instead of getting lost in a echo chamber of one song that I just can't crack or something like uh yeah, so in that sense I think over time I've become better at or more efficient at creating songs.
Do you feel like treating it like a 9 to 5 has put like more inherent like pressure on you to like, you're in there early in the day, like you gotta like have to do something even if you're having a
God,
bad day still, right?
yeah, I think maybe 3 or 4 years ago I would have been way more like hard on myself to be like this is the job, like go be good, you know. Whereas
Yeah.
now I'm like maybe I'll just go like I started playing golf last year, which is hilarious because I would have like definitely made fun of myself just a couple years
Right.
ago. But it's stuff like that where if you just like live and die by your job, like what is that life? Like so
Mhm.
why not pick up a new skill that you would have laughed at yourself for years ago and say like, well, if it's not happening today, like I'm just gonna go see the world a little bit more than
Right.
my
Yeah.
little studio. And honestly, like I think it's being able to access the parts of you that are like that gut you.
Mm.
And again, that's like just more life that you live.
Yeah.
Like you're
Yep.
the more that happens to you, and around you, like the more you can access that and pull from it from an inspirational standpoint. But the other thing is probably just being uncomfortable, like creatively, and like being like, well, I just like learning golf. If I don't know how this synth works or this like this new thing, I'm just gonna go crash through it and try to make something that I think is cool and feels good, and that usually will inspire something. If it's not that thing, it'll inspire a new thing.
Yeah. Is your golf game as advanced as your production skills?
Dude,
Probably not, right?
no, it's
Yeah,
the
I
reason I
hear that.
like it is that it's like so simple and so hard. Like the
Yeah.
refining and just the it's in the minutia and the stuff that is like frustrating about yourself of like why am I doing this, like
Right.
that is the challenge that I like. And I'm lucky to play with some people who are like super patient and and you know, take the ego and the pretense out of it. That's another thing about music is like the more you do it, hopefully the less precious you get with it, knowing that it's like this sort of shared language that's for everybody, you know. And
Yeah.
if I was just going to do it for myself in my bedroom, like that'd be one thing. But since I'm not, and I'm opening myself up to people, like that should be an invitation to be humble about it and not be precious and be honest also.
Yeah. Yeah. What kind of like in the realm of skills and stuff these days, it feels like what are your general feelings on just musicians today and how they have to market themselves and kind of how, you have to utilizing social media feels like it's a
Yeah,
need more than a want for
yeah,
most artists. Just kind of your general thoughts there.
yeah. Um, I mean, so many thoughts, right? Like it's I'm just glad I'm not a young artist right now. I think that I see some people do it to what objectively I would say is like they're doing really well with it. But at the same time, like I'm not in their bodies. Like I don't know like how it feels to have that be an arm of the business. I'm fortunate in the sense of like I've tried different ways of interacting with it, and none really feel uh all that organic or unforced. And the worst thing you can do is like put yourself out there in a really forced way, because I think people can hear it and sense it and see it. And I think that does a disservice to not only the music that you're trying to share with people, but also like your sense of self. Um, and again, as parents, right? Like I just hope that, and I'm sure every parent feels this, but I just hope that the current trend is just behind us. Like when or the current trends, I should say, are
Yeah.
just healthier. But I know that there'll be some other like, you know, unhealthy version of sharing yourself online when our kids are that age, and that's like, you know, a looming sense of doom, I guess. But that's a long tangent. But I think like I wonder if it is because the monetary value of art and especially music has changed like so drastically since the inception of like the modern music industry, which is like just not that old. I wonder if it's it's part of like the sense of gold rush with like it's accessible and it's free almost to record music, and it's free to interact with people on social media for the most part. But the flip side of that, right, is that like if something is free, like you are the product, and that is how I feel about people feeling like they need to engage with social media so that streams go up, which is like, you know, fractions of pennies. So I think it's probably tied up in the what people consider the value and the worth of the art that they're sharing. Um,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
abstract, but yeah,
Yeah, it's definitely for me. It's there's some artists that I feel like do it very well while maintaining like some level of like you said like very genuine feeling behind
yeah,
them. I do feel it does feel forced for a lot of people, and it's a struggle.
yeah,
Yeah, and you're right. And I just feel like the resurgence of like vinyl almost, that's where a lot of artists are making more money than streaming, and obviously touring is like a whole other leg of it. But
yeah,
um, it is weird seeing every single artist having to do a little bit of social media, even though you know, geez, 6, 7 years ago it wasn't even remotely like this.
yeah,
Um, so I guess too in a world of I mean obviously maybe not, it doesn't affect you as much, and we kind of briefly touched on it in a world of 10 to 15 second snippets that are defining artist success, right? How do you stay true to yourself, and how should an artist like attempt to stay true to
yeah.
themselves?
Well, hooks are hooks, right? Like if you're 15 seconds, like that's been the running thing recently anyway, is like, well, how do you hook somebody in the first 10 seconds of a song? And like practically that could mean that you start with a chorus, or some instrumental, or vocal thing. Like I can think of like so many songs that now start with this big like moment melodically or whatever. And I feel like there's nothing wrong with that. Like I think that's great. Um, but if you're in the lab and you're trying to just be like, all right, well, how do I maintain 15 seconds of somebody's attention rather than like, how do I world build and story tell and uh and get this song together in a way that feels honest and um in some sense like helpful, um not just to you but to who you hope to share it with.
Yeah.
Then I feel like it just cheapens it. And I'm like so guilty of some of that. Like I'm trying to I'm trying to like scratch an itch constantly. So, and sometimes it feels gratuitous, right? Like it's like, all right, it's a little heavy handed with how sad you're trying to make me or how like cinematic you're trying to make something. But I think so space and restraint are like really powerful tools in production and writing. And the 10 to 15 seconds really works against that because like how much space, like even though 10 or 15 seconds of dead air feels like an eternity, um, you just can't do, a ton, which I like not to like ingeniously tie this back to like what SYML stands for, which is simple, but that is the challenge, right? Is like how do you keep something simple? Um,
Yeah.
yeah, instead of pandering to like a you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like kind of like we said, like 15 seconds of dead air feels like forever, but 15 seconds of, like we talked about earlier with the Careful song, like where it's this huge build,
Yeah,
like, yeah, you can go on forever with that, but then it doesn't have that same effect that it had before. And two, with like you see these snippets go like crazy, and then the song comes out and people are like, oh, like that would like the 15 seconds was all they cared about in the first place. So it's
right.
definitely a fine balance. You're right. It's a very fine balance of restraining yourself to
I
put
mean, I
out
would hate to
what
be an
feels good.
artist that is viral and giant on TikTok because of 15 seconds of a moment of a song, and you pack out a 3,000 person venue for those 15 seconds. Like I've heard horror stories of artists who are like, "Oh shit, like I'm making it. Like this is it. Like this is the dream."
Right.
And literally it's like a room full of people who know 15 seconds of one song and they're there for like
Yeah.
hopefully they're there for an hour and a half of a show. And
Right.
that to me is like a nightmare scenario.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen I've seen a couple artists do that too, where like they've had a song go crazy, and then like I've been to a couple shows and they play that first, and then people just like bail out. I'm just like,
Bro, you cannot play that
that's
first. You gotta
rough.
know
That's
yourself.
rough.
You gotta,
Yeah.
yeah, it is rough.
Um, so something too, I'm kind of more curious to know about. I talked briefly with Ben from Old Sea Brigade on this a little bit. Just song syncs in general. I guess I didn't realize the mass behind it. So you've had obviously a few big spots, I think, on TV shows in terms of song syncs.
Yeah.
What was your first song sync, and then like what does that process look like? What is that all about?
Yeah. So it's basically sync is short for synchronization, and you can think of it as like whether like it's an ad or a film or a TV show, they will usually you'll work with somebody who is like pitching your music for the use in those things. And then the client who wants to use it will say like, all right, well, I'm willing to license it for this amount of money for this amount of time in this specific use. Um, and I mean, my first one was like for that show on MTV called The Hills. Um,
Oh yeah,
and it
yeah.
was
Okay,
like a 30-second helicopter flyover shot background music for this is in Barcelona days. And I want to say it was like $500. And it's which is not a lot of money in the grand scheme. Uh, but like the cool side of that is that like I mean ideally it's for exposure, right? Like it's you they have your name down at the bottom and hopefully like the teenagers in their houses are like I need to hear more of this band.
right.
Regularly what happens is that nobody does that and you get your $500. But you also if it's a big what's it called syndicated show like The Hills was and it's all over the world, then all those little like pennies from that license add up. And so you can get, you
Gotcha.
know, a couple grand every year or whatever it is.
Yeah,
And that's like one way that music can be more like a traditional business in the sense of like, well, this is my mailbox money that comes in from the use
Uh,
in these, awful teenage dramas or something. Um,
yeah.
but the more I got into it, the more tailored it became, right? And like, you can't really predict when something will react. In the culture. Like you could think like I've written the perfect sad song and it's going to be placed perfectly in this like really sad movie. Um,
Mm,
but it's usually the stuff that you don't like aim at that ends up working. Uh,
uh,
and I'm actually speaking tomorrow with like some of my some music supervisors who are the people that choose what music is in these moments. And they've become friends over the year because like Stimmel really jumped off in the beginning because of one of these uses. It was in another MTV show, the reboot of Teen Wolf,
yeah.
and it like just over kind of the closest thing to overnight that I've ever experienced. Where people like had to know what the song was, and it was so powerful. The characters and the storyline, and I mean that probably paid a little bit more than $500, but it wasn't like life changing money. What happened though was definitely life changing because it set up, um, it exposed that song in a major way around the world, and kind of set up the scene for streaming and touring and more TV uses and film and stuff. So like it can be, I mean, the simplest way is that like it can help pay your bills.
Yeah.
Um, and for a lot of musicians, that's really, really meaningful. So, um, yeah.
Does it feel or does it bring the song to life in a different way? Like so maybe not the hills like flyover scene, but in like the Teen Wolf scene, right? Does it bring the song to life in a different way for you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably a little bit like, not jaded, but I've probably been around it long enough now where, it doesn't hit me the same. Like I threw a party for that Hills flyover
Right.
scene.
Right.
And
Right.
now, like when
I
friends
get
are
it.
like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I heard your song in this in this new show," and like I still have the childish sort of spark there of like, I can't believe it's in a show. It's like hearing it on the radio or something.
Right.
It's like one of those. I had it this morning. My one of my kids, on the way to daycare was like, listening to. They wanted to hear a song on the new record, and in the car, like on the screen, which is like I try to tell my kids like this is not normal that you can just think of a song and type it into your computer in the car and it just plays. But like I
Yeah.
had that moment where it pulled up the album artwork in the car and I'm with my kids driving to daycare and I'm like looking at myself on the car screen and I was like, if I was 20 years ago, I would be like flipping
Be
out. But now that's
some
like
type of
my
way. Yeah.
everyday and so it's not to take away from the special magic sense of it, but it's also a little bit more like, well, this is how business works and that's a little
Right.
bit to not let it taint you is probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah, yeah, a back in my day moment, when you had to carry the CDs in a CD
Right.
case and
Right.
fumble around in the car for it. I get it.
Right.
uh,
Right.
so I guess in terms of your, all the songs you put out, maybe even with Barcelona, what's the song you're most proud of?
Mm. I'll separate it from earlier and later. So like my favorite song, oof, from Barcelona days was probably the song called Less Than Two. And that was about some friends going through like a pretty bad breakup and but also relating it to like my, experience with relationships too, where you're in a relationship and you start become less than two people, like you sort of combine yourselves into this like weaker version of yourselves. um I love that song. I hate how it was recorded in hindsight, so I don't listen to it ever, but I still love it. And then I really love the SYML song called Girl because it was for one of my kids before a big surgery that she had, and um that song is as close to what I think I'm gonna get to perfect in terms of writing, and I love that song. Yeah, it never gets old.
Yeah, that's amazing, honestly. So in my line of work, I guess I do a lot of music curation. So I always ask artists to what a song or an artist that you've really kind of been into recently.
I mean, I'm obsessed with Hermanos Gutierrez. Like I
Oh,
those guys who are like
mm.
I want to say Swiss and Ecuadorian or something.
Yeah, yeah, they are. You're
Is
right.
it? Okay.
Yep.
Um, I mean that vibe and I mean there's no words. It's the sense that you can put somebody in a movie of their own, you know, with really simple composition. I've been really into them. Arc de Soleil, like very in a line with
Yeah.
those like
Yep.
Khruangbin and
Crunk.
Hermanos
Yep.
Gutierrez. They have some words. I don't know. I mean, I there's some bands that I just like stick with but don't listen to very much anymore, which are like Jungle are massive now, but when Jungle was starting out, I felt like, especially in the US, like they, you know, weren't as big. And I was obsessed with what they were doing, like from a production and writing standpoint. And live their live show, which still is amazing. Band the band Elbow, I've been just religious about since I was like 19.
Yeah.
And still love everything they do. New. Hmm. It's funny because like the music world we live in, right, is like especially with Spotify and streaming services, is like discovery, right? And like you as a
Yeah.
curator, I mean, I'm sure maybe if you're having an off day and you feel like you need to find something, you might use, I don't know, you tell me, like, do you use any of the streaming services to discover uh like on purpose, or is it like, you know, by accident that you
Yeah.
discover?
It's a little bit of both. There's definitely days where I'm like struggling with discovering stuff. Like I honestly will just go back to stuff that I really enjoy.
Hmm.
Because there's days where it feels like it's almost like your ears kind of get tired in trying to
Yeah.
like listen to newer stuff. But yeah, I'll use it from time to time to find new stuff. It's hard with the way the algorithms are set up on it. Uh, you end up getting a lot of the stuff that you already know, so you really have to like find a small artist you like and then go there and then
Yeah.
go through that kind of situation. That's like the main way I do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does get tiring after a little while for sure. You have to take breaks from it, just like as in
Yeah,
anything
totally.
else. I'll go back to a bunch of stuff. Like I've really been into Hermanos Gutierrez too. Uh, Khruangbin, like love, like yeah, I could listen to that anytime. It really does kind of like cleanses my palate. I feel like in terms of when I'm
Yeah.
listening to music. Um, so I guess in terms of wrapping up here, what do you got coming up? What's on the horizon for Simmel?
Yeah. Summer's pretty chill. Got a couple festivals towards the end. And I mean, my biggest goal in music is to not leave home very much. And so we have tours. We have a tour coming in the fall, which I am very excited about. But fall into winter basically is the next big touring block. And then in between now and then, it's basically just a bunch of composing for and writing for myself and others, and you know, always trying to push it in terms of really leaning into what's comfortable and having fun there, but also like really trying to just like break into algorithm, right? Like breaking your own algorithm so that you can like be exposed to more interesting things, which eventually will make the other stuff sweeter. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah, just a lot of being in the studio and some traveling, trying to like play more golf.
play more golf. Like
Yeah. No, but
love
we
it.
also have like really cool we've been doing these or planning these symphony shows. We've done one of them here in Seattle, but have plans to do them elsewhere in the world too. So I'm really looking forward to that. That's
Amazing.
coming like a long time, but
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, lucky to
yeah.
do
That
this
sounds
as a job.
yeah, that sounds amazing. And yeah, the only way you get better at golf is by playing more golf. And then if you stop playing golf, you are not good at golf anymore. So
I know.
um,
I'm playing a
yeah, man,
lot
I
of golf and
appreciate.
I'm still not good at golf. So
Takes a long time to even be like to even feel like you're playing golf.
yeah.
So I appreciate you taking the time, man, and can't wait to see what's coming up for you.
All right, man. Thank you.